And when you look at the footage and how he twisted it in that shot with Benjamin André, you clearly see the twist and the turn. It depends. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 4. Really, you don't want him to be back for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later injuring again, and this time he's 3 months out, for example. So I think they will be careful and cautious with the ankle, which is I think the right thing to do. As much as you would want him against Bayern, if you're Galtier and the team, I just don't think you can take that risk, because that ankle is too fragile now. It's too weak in a way that if you risk him and bring him back too early, and if he plays with injections or strapped or anything, there's a big risk that at some point later down the line, he will injure it again.
Well, bearing in mind we sat here talking about how bad he's been and how, Galtier should show some stealing and leave him out for the Bayern game.
Yes.
They can't go with Messi.
Yep.
Well, they could. Messi, Mbappe, Neymar. They need a bit more solidity, maybe change the shape. We sat and discussed it a week ago. Don't want to see anybody injured, but is it a decision that's sort of fallen in Galtier's lap?
Yep.
He might not have to make that decision now?
Perfect.
Do you think so, Stevie?
Absolutely.
One of the best players in the world.
I'll tell you what, if I'm Galtier, right, I'm over Neymar, I'm going, oh, I can't believe it, disaster. Oh, this is the worst news we've had. And see when I go in the dressing, see when I go in my office and shut the door, I'm like, oh, your beauty.
But Stevie, this is Neymar.
Yeah, but we've discussed it.
We've been sat here telling how bad the guy's been, how he doesn't do it, he hasn't been doing anything going forward, and he doesn't do anything tracking back. If you're Galtier, you got right now. Now, I've still got Messi, I've got Mbappe. Now, I can have somebody else in the team who can do a little bit more defending than he ever does, because we're away at Bayern Munich. It's brilliant.
But he's had a rough couple of weeks. His numbers are still pretty impressive.
Listen, every one of us, nobody's squeezing out of this now. Everyone in this show has talked about it's too difficult to fit that front three in, particularly when you're playing the likes of Bayern Munich and the elite Champions League level, because you get Horst and the rest of the field.
Oh, Craig, look at his stats. Come on, look at his stats.
So we can't sit and discuss it and say...
No, but you're saying he's done nothing this season, which isn't true.
No, he's been bad. What?
He's had a bad few weeks.
And you know what?
You can't just...
I'll tell you what, hold on a second. So what is... For a start, in the Champions League, he has absolutely let them down so many times, right?
I don't know. He got them to a final. He got them to a final. That's not bad, is it?
Did you watch him against Bayern Munich last week?
You can't make sweeping statements saying he's never done anything for PSG in the Champions League.
I am telling you that he has let them down when it's mattered most in the Champions League. He's let them down when it's mattered most in the Champions League.
Galtier's not picking the team on what he did in the Champions League final the last time.
He was bought to win the Champions League. Hasn't done it. He wasn't bought to win the French league, was he?
No, I understand that, but I think it's detrimental, those sort of statements, to say he's done nothing, because I don't think that's fair.
Okay, I'll take that back. He hasn't done what he's supposed to have done. He hasn't done enough, and he shouldn't be starting against Bayern Munich. And if I'm Galtier, I'm as happy as Larry, because now I can get somebody in there who's going to do a little bit of everything for me and give us a better chance of winning this game. Because if Neymar's playing, it's either he wins us the game, as you said, how good he is, or he's going to cost you the game. He doesn't have that worry anymore.
Jules, is this a blessing in disguise?
I don't know if we can say it's a blessing. I don't know if we can say that it's a blessing in disguise. You don't want anybody to be injured,
of course not.
But we've
I
explained on the
don't
show
mean that, obviously.
No.
But Galtier's hand has been
No,
forced.
of course, I know. But yeah, and we said on the show, and I agree with the boys. I don't believe that the three of them can play well together. You can put them on the pitch together, of course, and they were on the pitch on Saturday for the 50 minutes that Neymar played, and Neymar was good, was okay, and he scored. Kylian was great, but Messi was anonymous. And I can take you every single game this season, and there hasn't been that many, I give you that, where all three of them started, and we can go through the games again. And I guarantee you that most of the time, not all three of them were good together at the same time in the same game. And I do think that this is a problem. And I think you go away to Munich when you're already 1-0 down from the first leg, so you have to attack, because you can't just spend your time defending. It's not enough. You're out at kickoff. So you will have to attack, which means that you will have to expose yourself defensively in a way. And I think those three of them make the team unbalanced. You defend at 7 or 8 with your goalkeeper because that front three doesn't defend, and it's difficult. It is difficult.
Frank?
Well, I think if somebody was very unhappy to see Neymar injured was maybe Nagelsmann, and because of the reason that the guy explained, that there is a big opportunity for Christophe Galtier to change his team selection that he will have to do, but to change his tactic and to be more solid, to be more consistent, and to make sure that at least one of the guy at front will defend. So it can be Ekitike, or it can be somebody else, or maybe put a midfield more in the middle of the park, which will help to defend better and to, in fact, release Mbappe to any defensive task. So it's not a good news for Bayern Munich to see Neymar injured. Neymar was good at the beginning of the season. You cannot take that away from him. He was absolutely fantastic, and he had some great games. But as always, in February, we see him disappearing. That's always the same scenario that we see. It's sad because today it's an injury, but before it was something else. But at the end of the day, in football, we are talking about consistency. And when we talk about consistency with Neymar in Paris Saint-Germain, I don't know, I'm still looking for it.
Can I say one last thing? Whether you agree with what I said or not, at the end of the day, PSG want rid of him. And they want rid of him for a reason.
Meanwhile, of course, that wasn't the only drama we saw in that 4-3 victory. Luis Campos, the PSG sporting director, coming down from the stands to the touchline during the second half. This is what Christophe Galtier had to say about Campos' actions. I'm in front of him, so I can't see behind, of course. There are images that circulate. Luis is a passionate, competitive man. He has a great desire to succeed collectively. Luis is a great part of the technical and sporting team, and I have no problem with that because there's no intervention on a technical or tactical level. There is passion. How has this been received?
Like almost he was there, shouting at the referee, shouting at the fourth referee, getting clearly pumped, and you could see how mad he was at some point, and especially because PSG scored the third goal really late, and then the winner even later than that. The issue was what he did in that game on the side for sure. I think maybe now the bigger issue, if you look at the bigger picture slightly, is the weekend before when PSG lost away at Monaco, when he came down at half-time in the dressing room and then spoke to the players at half-time. You can have your sporting director on the touchline getting agitated and animated. I understand that. I've got no real issues with that. However, your sporting director coming down at half-time, doing the job of your manager, talking to the players who are 3-1 down at the time. I don't agree with that. This is not his role. He can come and speak to the players afterwards, on the coach, on the flight back, have a meeting the next day at the training ground. Okay. Coming at half-time and do the team talk at half-time. And I don't think Galtier liked that, by the way, what happened at Monaco. And after the game, he came down again and had an argument with Marquinhos and Neymar, and he was shouting, and they were shouting. And again, that's not good. So what he did at Lille on the touchline for the last 15, 20 minutes, maybe. I didn't think it was classy, but maybe. But at Monaco at half-time, this is not on.
What a mess, Frank.
Yes, but if there is only one person who understands what the word hierarchy means, it's Christophe Galtier. And he doesn't forget that, in fact, Mr. Campos is above him. So what can he do? What can he say? Nothing. He cannot complain. Maybe he talked to him and say, you shouldn't do that. But publicly, he cannot say anything. That's not classy. I know Mr. Campos is a very nice person, but he has to know that he cannot do that. Because the only person who's going to be blamed by that is Christophe Galtier for not interfering in front of everybody, saying, what are you doing? Get out of here. I'm the one in charge. But that's the end of the world if he does that. And so he knows that better than anybody else. But again, if there is one person who understands the word hierarchy, it's Christophe Galtier.
Yeah, hierarchy here on display, but goodness me, it just takes all the power away from a manager, doesn't it? What do the players think?
Absolute no-no. And all it does is suck any respect that the players have for the manager. It's an absolute no-no. The only person, as a coach, that can talk to players or any of that is the guy that owns the club.
Right.
The guy who owns it is the only person that can do what he wants, because it's his. It belongs to him. Anybody else. And Frank's saying Campos is above him, so he can't do anything. I actually disagree. As soon as that guy went anywhere near getting involved, Gaultier should have been straight over and got straight in his face and told him.
Yeah. That's his job, he's gone.
Stevie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
But his
Stevie,
job's
I
you can't have it. It's
Stevie,
it's a complete no-no.
I agree with you, Stevie, but you come from the Premier League. Ask Julian's if Leonardo never interfered when he was a general manager. Ask if any Italian general manager interfere in Italy or in Spain. That's a Latin problem that people think that he can go over the coach and say what they think. That's a problem. You come from the Premier League where you never see that. And I agree with you. Chairman don't go down, general managers stay in their seats. But in Latin countries, that's something we can see a lot.
Well, I remember Kenny Dalglish come into the dressing room during a cup tie at Celtic when John Barnes was the manager, and John and his coaches were given a half-time team talk, rant, whatever you want to call it, and Kenny burst in. And whilst they're obviously close, and there's not a friction between those two in particular, it made for a really awkward and embarrassing situation for the manager.
I bet.
Because, he had to take a...
It's like, you can't do your job, I've got to do it for you.
Well, effectively, when Kenny came in, Barnsley had to take a step back to the side and just listen.
Right.
I mean, it's not helpful to anybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.